All right, everybody. Well, thanks once again for joining us here. And this time around, this is our virtual tasting number 18, Bordeaux. Now, first off, I want to go into a little bit of history about Bordeaux. So actually, I'll want to share my screen out. So give me a thumbs up once you see my screen. All right. So as you can see, all of France, and a little bit about Bordeaux itself is that there was evidence of wine production in Bordeaux back to like the 4th century AD. There's some kind of records where it was actually grapes that were here in Rioja that were actually kind of brought up and and introduced into the Bordeaux region. Now, and then in the Middle Ages, the wine trade was mostly from inland areas. And it was, the funny thing was that it was with England. England loved French wine. But then the 100-Year War happened, and it really just killed the wine industry. Then in the mid-1600s, a bunch of Dutch merchants were looking to expand trade all throughout that area. And so what they did was they created a complex series of channels that drained the marshes out there and made the land out there a lot more suitable for viticulture. Most notably is the Medoc region, because it was like as barren a salt marsh as it came, and now is one of the best fields for wine grapes. So let's look at Bordeaux itself. So back in 1855, there was an event called the Exposition Universelle de Paris. And Emperor Napoleon requested a classification system for France's best Bordeauxs to really kind of show off to the visitors that were coming from all around the world. And so was born the Bordeaux Wine Official Classification, which rated all the chateaus based on their quality and more importantly, their market price. So, whichever were being sold for the most money got highest rankings. Yeah, go figure. And the funny thing is that of those, top tier, there's only been 2 changes since that was enacted. So from 1855 to now, there's only 2 additions, which was I think Hope Bryan and I don't know, one of the other, I think it was Mouton that also got acquired by Rothschild. And so, and that's where you get the numbered crus that you CRU that you hear about. Premier Cru, Deuxième Cru, which means first and second growth, and it goes all the way down to 5th. Now, Grand Cru, on the other hand, is used by a lot of the other regions, and it's actually used by the right bank as well over in Saint-Emilion, but also in Burgundy, to kind of call out various chateaus that are in that region that make highly sought after and rated wines year after year. So let me go ahead and get in just a little bit further here. So what we're going to be talking about now is the terroir, which is kind of like the climate, the soil, all the good stuff that makes for good wine. Now, because of the amount of waterways that are through here, the climate's pretty moderated, and the Gulf Stream that kind of comes up through this bottom part here kind of brings in some warm waters up from the Caribbean and allows for some slight humidity, mild weather. Now, as you can see here, there's 2 rivers, and they flow this way. As much as you might think they flow from the big part to the little parts, No, they all flow, this way. And that is the Garonne and the, I'm trying to remember if I can say this, Dordogne, Dordogne, yes, Dordogne, which meet just north, as you can see here, just north of the actual city of Bordeaux. Now, where they meet and then kind of go up through here, this is the Garonne estuary. And that is essentially the divider between left bank and right bank. So just always remember that this Garonne place right here, well, pretty much just this whole part right here is your separator for left bank versus right bank, which we'll be talking about, a lot throughout Bordeaux. Now, one of the other things I'll be talking about shortly too is the soil types. And I'll be getting into that as we touch on each region and sub-region, because they are fairly different, and each of which is pretty key to the grapes that are grown there, and is heavily influenced by those rivers. So our first region is kind of our biggest, because I also rated it or ranked it as the first one to talk about, because that's our first wine, is Entre-Deux-Mers. Now, much like the fertileness of the delta at the Nile River, those two rivers dump a lot of silt into that area. So both of these are just feeding silt all throughout here. And that lends to that silt, along with limestone and clay, being the main soil type here. And typically, this area is known for two types of grapes, Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon. And those two in combination, along with a little bit of Muscadel and Muscadet, are your typical producers of Bordeaux Blanc. Now, recently, because they've been taking a cue from the right bank, and a lot of that also is due to the average temperature rising, thanks to climate change, to make red grapes viable during the growing season. And so they've actually been producing some pretty quality Merlot as of late. Now, just above that is our right bank. Now, the two places that are, kind of the most important ones, Saint-Emilion and Pomerol. Saint-Emilion, just north of Entre-Deux-Mers. So here's Entre-Deux-Mers. Here's Saint-Emilion. And it has a little bit of gravel, but it's still prominently that limestone and sand, much like its southern sister. Pomerol, on the other hand, before I go any further than that, you might be asking, what does like limestone, sand, what do all those kind of look like? So let me zoom in a little bit here. So a lot of, the sand, well, that's just more like, think of like beachy, sand with some rocks in it, not so much like the gravel. But Saint-Emilion, with this limestone, it's this kind of rockiness, and there'll actually be like shearing that's done, and right there is this limestone that gives off a little bit of like this like calcium and mineral flavor to many of its wines. And I switch back over to our other map. Just north of that is Pomerol, and of Saint-Emilion, and it's a little bit different in that it has an iron pan under that sand and clay. Now, iron pan is just a fancy word for that sand and clay to have iron oxides mixed into it. So, and that in turn is what kind of makes up So this is not like typical clay. Clay is mostly, like a light brown, but this kind of darker red, that's usually the, signifies that it's got that iron oxide in it. Now, both of these places that we're talking about for our right bank are, mainly focused on Merlot. But do check where your right bank wine comes from, because Saint Emilion with that limestone is going to, as you're tasting it, see if you can detect maybe a little bit of wet stone, while that Pomerol, if you have that, is going to be influenced by that iron pan. It might have a touch of sang, which means blood, in its flavor, and it might come off tasting a little bit like coffee. Now, sand and clay aren't really the best, for draining water, which is kind of an important thing for some grapes. And also because you don't want like your roots to rot, or, you want that water to kind of drain away. And it's mostly a detriment for wine grapes. But it does help when you're, in like a drier area with sporadic rain. Like in 2018, it rained really heavily in February, and everyone was worried that it was going to be like a terrible year's harvest. And then it got hot and there was no rain for a long period of time. And that water retention actually saved those grapes. And it's turning out to be one of their best years in a while. So, that always keep that on your mind too, is that right bank Bordeaux 2018, really good stuff. And then on top of that, usually their second big grape that they grow here is Cab Franc. Like at least the one that I have is 75% Merlot and 25% Cab Franc. And for those of you that were here, was it 3 weeks ago, when we did Merlot, it's also kind of funny that Cab Franc is actually the parent of Merlot. Now, let's move on to the left bank. Where's my left bank? Here we are. No. Do I not have my left bank? There we are. Left bank. So remember when I was mentioning the Dutch draining those salt marshes? Well, underneath those marshes, just a bunch of gravel, which drains really, really well. And it leads to the grapes struggling just enough to make for really good Cabernet Sauvignon. And their flavor influences come from that leftover sediment, from that marsh draining, and also from, there's a giant like pine forest. Let me go back to the whole of Bordeaux. So all along here is this giant pine forest. And, it kind of lends a little bit of that, piney flavor, and it's kind of like an influence to the wine. And but at the same time, what it does is it also protects that same area, this area here, from any cold gusts that are going to come in from the Atlantic Ocean. Now, with really good Cab Sauv, which is kind of like the typical majority that you'll find in a left bank blend, what they grow is and these are all allowed blendings inside of a left bank. Well, actually, if it's all of Bordeaux, but what you'll get is a little bit of Merlot. You also get some Cab Franc, but usually on here on the left side, you don't usually see many of those, but you do see a lot more Petit Verdot and maybe a little bit of Carmenere. So whenever you look at they'll usually put, well, most of them put like a little percentage on the back to kind of give you an indication of what they blended in. And that'll kind of, tell you, hey, well, this is going to be a little bit more juicy, a little bit greener, things like that. The left bank also has a fairly distinct aroma and flavor profile that is for left bank Bordeaux. If you smell it, more than likely, it is left bank Bordeaux, and that's pencil shaped. It's kind of weird. It's a combination of the like graphite that kind of comes from the gravel, and a little bit of the new oak cedar that'll probably take many of you back to like elementary school. But as when we do the Medoc region, kind of keep that on your nose. Now, there is a difference between, as you can kind of see here, there's Medoc and Haut-Medoc. Now, Medoc itself is where you'll actually kind of find a lot more of like the light and easy drinking reds. And the rest of Haut-Medoc, which is, this is the easy drinking stuff. And so if it just says Medoc, it might be a little bit lighter, while anything that says Haut-Medoc is where you'll find your age-worthy and investment-worthy wines. And lastly, as you kind of had seen from the map, even though it's technically classified as left bank because it's left of the Gironde, is Graves. Now, Graves, let's see, do I have a Graves? Yes, I do. So like the rest of the left bank, the soil that's here is mostly gravel. But instead of red grapes, what they grow typically is a white grape. It's called Semillon. And we're going to focus on the smaller region in here that is Sauternes. So this little guy here. Now, what makes Sauternes special is a particular mold called botrytis. And I don't know, it's not much to look at. It's this gray mold that's kind of sitting on these grapes. But what it lacks in looks makes up for in something very peculiar. So what happens is that this mold punctures the skin of the grape and sucks out all the water, leaving behind all the gross sugar. And because of that, you get these kind of raisiny grapes. But that's what us humans want in our grapes. The more sugar, the better. So when these almost raisins are pressed, you get this quasi syrup instead of the typical grape juice, or must if you are being technical, which means that the yeast has a lot more to eat, getting a higher alcohol content naturally, instead of kind of filling it with like just spirits afterwards, like port. But at the same time, also leave behind a high residual sugar. So that's why all of your Sauternes are going to be mostly syrupy sweet, but at the same time they're going to have a fair bit of alcohol to them. Now, botrytis is known as the noble rot. And the Germans also use the same technique, and that's when it's used in one of their highest categories of wine. That's called Trockenbeeren Nausles. And Sauternes usually has their notes are typically dried apricot, along with some citrus, and just a hint. Depending on how well they cleaned, they'll just have a hint of earthy mushroom to them. On that note, I think I'm done with the lecture. So does anyone have any questions before we move on to the drinking portion? No? All right. So we are going to move on to our first white, which is the Entre-Deux-Mers.
Or for some of us, our second white.
I'm not saying we have a drinking problem. I'm not saying we don't.
It's not a problem.
It is not a problem. We do it very well.
We're very good at it.
And so for those of you that are new, what we do is we kind of go through a deductive process with our wine. So the first thing we do is we go through our site, and we're going to be looking at the color. We're going to be looking at the legs. So usually what we do is, kind of hold it at your glass at a 45-degree angle, have a little bit of a white background behind it. So that way you have a pretty good, idea of what that color is. Usually with a newer Bordeaux Blanc, you're probably looking at like straw yellow, if not even a little bit lighter.
Darker than it looks.
I would have to agree with
Now, and then what you do is you give it a little bit of a swirl,
you. Look at that.
and then give it one more. And what you'll start to see is tearing.
This is like a lot of tears.
Now, depending on if you just washed it in the dishwasher and there might be some cleansing liquid still on here, you might not see so much the tearings. But what you should see is near the top, they'll start to kind of drip and then start to pull down. And what that is that there's two things that cause that, sugar and alcohol. And so, depending on how thick those legs are, is with a drier wine, you can get a pretty good estimate of, where the alcohol content in this wine is. And these are pulling down pretty fast. So I probably wouldn't put this much past like 12.5. But I mean, most French wines don't go much past 13 unless it's like a really big, red Bordeaux. So I mean, that's always just a really good guess.
They're not invited back.
Okay, so now that we've gone through the site, now we're going to go for nose. So give it another little swirl, and then what we're going to do is take a couple of short sniffs. You don't want to overload your nose, but you do want to get enough in there to kind of start processing.
Turning a little bit, it changes.
And then I got like grapefruit, but I think the pineapple is closer.
What is it?
It's Marlboro Sauvignon Blanc. It smells so much like grapefruit to me.
So we can say.
So what's everyone smelling on this?
I smelled somebody had just mowed their lawn, so grass.
So you see a lot of grass and green. Okay.
Rachel's getting pineapple, and I'm getting some minerals.
Yeah, I smell I have minerals.
Anyone have any like citrus, like grapefruit, maybe some melon?
My second one.
Melon.
Ours is more grapefruit.
Of course, we have a different one.
I think we all have different wines, so it's okay to have different smells.
Yeah. So they're going to be from the same region, so things are going to be mostly similar, but there's also going to be when they harvested, how they fermented the grapes on the lees off. So there's going to be a little bit of difference, but at the same time, and that's why I was kind of doing more of a show and tell this time around than where we're just going through the same wine and then kind of comparing notes. But this is kind of good because again, we're all still kind of in the same ballpark for where our wine is. So let's go ahead and give this thing a taste. First of the night. So cheers, everybody.
Well, we're in a show.
Like every week or just weekends?
Next week.
Ooh. Oh, there's that mineral that you were smelling, Casey.
All the way.
This actually has, because I mean that's the thing that I love about a good French Chablis, is that it's got citrus, but it tastes like a San Pellegrino, where it's just so minerally.
Yep.
Hmm.
Probably not.
Yeah, it's a nice dry white wine.
You know what? Quite honestly, I could do this.
It's actually, I know, at least for me, this one, it isn't as acidic as I was thinking, it was going to be. So it's actually kind of smooth.
Agreed, and no like wood. It doesn't have any.
Oh no.
Doesn't taste like any of that. So.
Yeah, most French whites, they stopped oaking back in the 80s. Yeah, so most of theirs are just like really crisp white wines. Okay, well, and then the last part that we do with the wine is, that's why I kind of give out those like suggestions for little nibbles to pair with it, and kind of for those of you that are new, the way to kind of get the most bang for your buck out of wine and food is to first take a sip of your wine to kind of prime your palate, and then go ahead and take a little bite of whatever it is, start chewing it around. But before that final swallow, go ahead and take another sip and wash it down. Almost like you're, and that's where the magic is going to happen. So sip, chew, sip.
On top of it.
And then you start to play a game, where it's like, I'm going to try it with everything and see what happens.
Oh, wow. That's great.
I always love the first time that someone experiences that.
You were asking about, I didn't get on the nose, but I get on the palate.
What was that?
Repeat, Ryan.
You were asking about lemon?
I mean, I think there was some citrus. I mean, I was getting grapefruit, but
Yeah, I didn't get on the nose, but I got it on the palate.
okay.
Oh, geez.
But yeah, I'd say, yeah, try it with a couple of different things, and kind of scream out your favorites. That's always the good thing is, if for some reason you try it with something that no one else has, maybe tomorrow when you're going through your leftover wine, before you do that, you go hunting for whatever someone else said, hey, that's really good.
Amateurs.
It brings out we're having it with goat cheese that has like herbs on the outside, and it's definitely bringing out more of you can tell it's goat cheese as opposed to cow cheese. It really is bringing out kind of that goaty.
The goat, yeah.
Bringing out the goat. Yeah.
It's like that like kind of greeny tang.
Yeah.
Like, ooh, that goat was eating grass.
Eat a goat.
Really good with blue cheese as well.
Save some of that blue cheese for your Sauterne. I've been hearing that Sauterne and blue cheese is going to rock your world.
Oh, I bet. It's kind of neutral. I had a piece of dried apricot, and it was neutral, but the cheese was much more prominent.
Well, there's a little bit of science behind why cheese and wine do so well together. Because what you have is that wine, being an astringent, is every time that you're drinking it, it's stripping away layers of protection on your tongue. And if you're all you're doing is drinking wine, after a while, it starts to become unpleasant.
Oh yeah.
But in almost the opposite realm, cheese, being a lipid, is kind of coating your tongue. And so that's why, after a little while, just eating cheese by itself, you need something to cleanse that palate. And so really, what happens is that, when you have a little bit of cheese, it lays down that layer of protection, and then the wine comes along and strips it away, which brings you kind of back to homeostasis.
It's fantastic.
But it's the same thing with like oil and vinegar. You know,
Yeah.
you just pretty much need a fat and an astringent.
Oh, come out of here. I feel like
But that's buttery.
Yeah, and I actually have some herb goat cheese as well, and yeah, it's really, you know, all of a sudden the herbs go away, and all it is, you know, it's just like a goat's like right here. Meh.
Yeah.
I think you guys would be hallucinating goats at the end of the tasting rather than at the beginning.
We just spent a week with goats in the next lot when we were out in Kentucky, and it was in a whole valley that they would bleat and wail for. I mean,
All day.
it was a 12-second cycle for the bleeding. So we're still seeing it in our dreams.
Oh, that was not a good pairing. I had some. I have some aged Gouda. That's like it's been aged for like 20 months, so it's like kind of really hard, and it looks more like cheddar.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean it's got a really good like nutty flavor, but ooh, with this wine,
Yeah.
it did not go out well.
Yeah, that sounds like a red cheese.
Yeah. But again, you know, you got to try with everything, because as much as it might sound like a bad match in your mind, you got to try it anyway for science.
Oh, we love it with gorgonzola. It's
Okay.
just-
So blue cheese and this is
Yeah.
doing pretty well.
Yeah, that was the best so far. Let's see pate. Let's do a little meat.
Probably like, I would just like sit on the back bench and drink it and not worry about it.
All right. Then
Yeah.
raise your glasses if they're empty, and then I'll know to move on to our next one.
There should be a wine glass icon on Zoom. Yeah, raise your hand.
Actually, that's good.
So went with the pate.
Done.
Interesting.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure.
All right. So the next up is going to be our Medoc region. So for me, it's the Chateau du Rateau.
I don't know if I have Medoc or if that is, if we have it over there.
Now,
I have a Haute Medoc.
yeah.
Just mineral and nothing else doesn't.
Yeah.
Mineral plus something more. This has high acid.
All right. Are some of you trying to figure out which is your
Richard, what's the other one we're supposed to have?
either a Saint Emilion or Pomerol?
Okay.
I mean, one should say like Medoc or just Medoc.
Guys,
I might not have gotten the second one correct, but that's fine.
we're gonna get drunk. 14
Yep.
points.
It's looking like at least most of us have Medoc.
Get the blue one.
Was it supposed to be the little bottle? Because
I did see some splits out there.
yeah, this is all that Total Wine had.
Oh,
Oh, for the one that I listed.
So
what am I putting in my body? This is so dark.
And then
Okay, so let's go ahead and give this thing a look. And wow, yeah. I mean, this is
well, we can't really look at
yeah.
it.
Compare this to just like a Medoc, and you know, a Medoc would be much more red. I mean, this is dark ruby.
plum, yeah.
We have a Haute Medoc. Is that? I'm confused.
What's that?
We have a Haute Medoc.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Which, you know, if you're listening to the lecture, that's the good region.
We were drinking. I was talking to you about watch it later. Yes,
The
you were.
non-basic,
You were
the
talking.
not basic region. Is that what you're saying? The not basic.
All right. So yes.
Her just told me this is the second time we've learned it, so
This is-
sorry.
This is the review.
All right. So let's go ahead and give this thing a bit of a swirl, and let's check its.
So there's that.
Oh wow. Those are actually
A
coming.
lot more. This one's much drippier.
Yeah. Well, and you'll probably see them a lot more just because those tannins that are in here will also start to do a little bit of staining.
It smells so good.
Ooh.
But yeah, I would put this one more. Oh wow, they're actually coming down pretty slow. I'll put this one at 13.5. Come on.
Richard, would you explain to me what these
Yeah,
13.5 and
exactly.
12.5 mean?
Oh, that's the alcohol by volume, ABV.
Okay, thank you.
Ooh.
All right. So let's give this thing another swirl and let's give it a sniff.
Strong.
Ooh.
Smells like whiskey
Daddy
to me.
lights.
Holy shoes.
I'm getting
It's
like
amazing.
I'm getting leather. And,
That's-
and
Yeah.
maybe some
We're
tobacco.
also getting a little plum.
Sure.
Oh yeah, there's definitely that dark fruit in here.
Yeah. But leather, I definitely
No
smell.
other. No, agree.
Like,
Yeah.
Now
Ours is-
the question is, do you smell any pencil shavings?
No.
No?
Suggestion, yeah.
He says, once you suggest it, oh yeah, then I smell it. But like, it's not.
I smell more green than I do pencil shavings.
Oh wow. So
Yeah.
Ours is
Oh wow. That's I've never smelled that before.
Ah. All right. Well, let's see if our taste buds match our noses. So, cheers.
Cheers.
Mm.
so you're in taste in the dark.
Polish, shoe
place, but
polish.
you're gonna really like it.
The shoe polish.
Oh, okay.
It's a really weird mouthfeel because the middle was really big
Mhm.
and then it kind of thinned. And then the end for me is a little bit peppery. So it's a very weird mouthfeel because usually I'm waiting for that big at the end and the big here was in the middle.
Yeah.
What Sunday is this with
Huh.
I think there must be some cat rock in there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's got a really long like, finish that kind of sneaks up on you, and that's where that black pepper is.
Yeah, it just, you don't ride it all the way there. It kind of thins out. And then at the very end, you're like, oh, there's that other taste. Interesting.
But I don't know, again, maybe I'm putting too much into it, but for me, that pepper then morphs into graphite. That's where all of a sudden it starts turning stony.
Okay, try this with the goat.
So I made a chocolate mousse with blueberries, and it really pairs nicely with that. It's a 70% cacao, Ghirardelli. So it's
Ghirardelli.
Ghirardelli.
I'd
So it's
have
really
heard of
nice. It mutes the wine nicely.
I forgot, I also picked these up on the vaccine road trip, so we could have
All right.
more.
I'm really hoping this aged Gouda goes better with this.
I totally forgot until you said chocolate. I was just, let's have.
Classic wine, but they kind of need to be on their own.
This wine is just good by itself, but
A lot of pepper.
yeah, the aged Gouda in this is amazing.
But the gorgonzola really brings it out.
Or have wine mate.
that kind of like salty nuttiness.
I did not like the blue cheese with them.
No.
We're gonna try it just in case. We'll see.
We're testing you, Casey.
Yeah, but as usual, I have one of my Trader Joe's steak and stout pies because these things are amazing with any red wine.
What's it, Richard? Trader Joe's what?
Steak and stout pie.
Now it's really good with the pate on my end.
Casey, what kind of pate?
It's all asleep now.
Liver pate. I mean, is that?
I didn't know goat or not goat, the duck or.
No, just liver, just beef liver pate, I believe.
I've had a few of them, and I've been like, what the fuck is
I'll go with that. Blue cheese.
Yeah, we like it here with the blue cheese, but you know.
I have a little chocolate. I'm gonna try it with chocolate.
Helps if
Well, I mean, chocolate does come from a recommendation from Rob, so.
Did you like it with the stout pie, Richard?
Yeah, I mean, it was just, I don't know, it just made me feel good. Like I was like, it took me back, like it made me feel like I was in a cabin, you know.
We
Just
have Irish stout cheddar, so I'm curious. We'll try that.
Ooh, no.
He's like, no.
so
Well,
dark
no,
chocolate.
it's a bad pairing. It's just bad. You're like, ooh, it takes away the taste of the wine, or it takes away the taste of the food, or
Yeah, and
it's bad. You're like,
and that's why I always say try it with everything, because I mean, again, you might come up with just some weird combination. You know, usually, you know, with pairings, you're wanting to get some flavor that's complementary in both. You know, some kind of like, you know, herbal savory, or, you know, green note, or like a red fruit, black fruit, you know, something, just something.
Yeah.
Very good with the goat cheese.
Like for me, you know, if I was doing like dark chocolate by itself, I don't really see as it really doesn't pair much with anything. It's a, for me, it's a delivery mechanism for something else. So if I'm having like a, you know, like a Merlot or a Zin or something, you know, I want like dark chocolate with blueberries or dark chocolate with raspberry. You know, you want that fruit note in there. That's all of a sudden that's what's going to bring, you know, those notes forward, not just the chocolate itself.
I like your description of pepper morphing to graphite. I don't think I would have been able to put that into words on my own, but yeah, I get it.
Oh no, they're breaking out the licorice.
Ooh. Is that a thing?
They
The
carry.
licorice is like the ultimate test, litmus test.
If you have anise.
I don't know. You drag that bag around in Virginia, and it didn't convince me then either.
Don't think shame us.
That was surprisingly good with the apricot.
Really?
Yeah.
That I wouldn't have guessed.
Rachel? Oh. Now there is salty. There's these little things called from Denmark that like they're little pirate discs. They are like licking a salt lick. Not good. Yeah.
Oh, what was that stuff that makes everything sweet, like lemon?
Oh,
The miracle berries.
miracle, but yeah. It's not goji. That's not goji berry, is it? The miracle berry? No.
No, it's like some berry from Africa. But
Yeah.
I had them try them when we were out in Virginia, and then we, you know, kind of went into a cosmic tasting party where we're, you know, just biting on wedges of lemon, and it comes out tasting like, you know, a sweet lemon head.
Mm-hmm.
Haute Medoc.
Actually, I looked up the pronunciation. And it's just,
Oh, it is O.
That is accurate.
Totes my goats.
Nice.
He's just gonna ship the Japanese.
All right. How's everyone's glasses looking?
I keep getting refilled.
I typed some shit into
I did too. It came up in hiragana and katakana. I'm like, oh, I don't remember. I don't remember.
No, out of the things that I tried with this one, I still think that aged Gouda actually beat out the steak and stout pie. That was.
I love that the aged Goudas because they have that crystal, like crystalline texture, and that's just the best. It's kind of like caramely, but not.
Well, are you talking about that little crunch?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's protein crystals. Because Bellavitano, they kind of specialize in that with their cheeses, where they'll have like little holes all throughout the cheese, and there's little crunchy bits in there, and it's these protein crystals.
I've had a 7-year cheddar with a lot of those crystals. It was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's like a taste burst. You're like, oh.
Yeah.
And it's almost sweet, but I've learned not to say that because I once told my daughter the blue cheese was kind of sweet and she tasted her face. I have never seen a face like that. She was probably 4 or 5. She was like, "You just told me this was good? There is it is the worst thing I've ever put in my mouth." I was
You
like,
lied.
I know. She was totally like, "This is the worst thing ever. Stop."
All right.
Where do you get 7-year cheddar?
Woodman's.
Oh, I got it at a farmer's market. It was the only place I've ever found it.
All right. I think I'm being moved on to our
Casey.
right bank. All right.
Casey, do you ever end up out in the suburbs?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Woodman's has got a lot of older cheeses. Like you can get all the way out to 20-year, and in their cheese aisle, and it's much more affordable because it's all Wisconsin.
Yeah,
I mean, I can get 5-year cheese for like on sale price of Kraft.
Okay. Nice.
Like my iron is lower now than it was.
All right. So
Is that Damien?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even realize it. I'm sorry.
I was saying there's too many beer goggles on.
Yeah, I apologize. Sorry.
Well, he is with me, but I didn't put his
Right.
name out.
all right.
My eyes.
As we're looking at this one,
You can't
wow.
see, but you can hear.
Now I'm not sure about everybody else's, but I mean this one, for me, it's even darker than the last.
Yeah.
Is this the Pomerol?
Yeah, Pomerol, Saint Emilion.
Yeah.
Vanilla.
Yeah.
So does someone actually have Pomerol?
Yeah.
Okay.
Woo, look at you.
I'll be curious if because we're going to be we hopefully will be tasting a little bit of like wet stone in ours. I'll be wondering if you'll have a little bit of that iron flavor in yours.
I just have to laugh. I'm reading the label and it doesn't have the punctuation it's supposed to. So it says to be drunk, decanted at room temperature. But I just read to be drunk, decanted. So if you're drunk decanting, do it at room temperature.
Oh, wow. That actually came down fairly.
Stroke your damn thing. Do it.
I don't know. Me, I'd be putting this at like 12.5. Let's see.
For me, sent out, have you been vaccinated? Question.
Oh, mine's 13.5.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we have more legs than our other one. So interesting.
Like, fuck that. Tell me how I.
You're seeing a lot more legs, a little bit thicker.
We are, yeah, with ours.
Like caffeine.
What's the ABV on it? Bye, Christy.
It's actually 12.5. So.
Yeah, because the other one was our other one was 13.5.
Okay.
But we have better legs than this one.
This one seems to be, oh, well, no, there you go. It took longer. Like I swirled it and it took several more seconds to see the bleed or the drip.
Lots of them.
Huh.
All right. Oh, let's give it a swirl and a sniff.
I'm not sure that these glasses are real clean.
Mm.
There they go.
Really fruity.
So what's everyone smelling on this?
I would have put it at 13, but not 12.5. I wouldn't have. This had bigger.
Oh, Frenchie. S'il vous plaît.
So slightly better.
I smell
I smell kind of berry.
Like maybe like a blackberry?
Yeah, kind of
Very
like a
good or very
blackberry.
bad?
Well, I mean, considering that these are, right bank, mostly Merlot, so you're probably going to be noticing a lot of darker fruit notes to it. Blackberry, black currant,
You got plum.
a little bit of plum, yeah, and potentially even a little bit of blue,
Even a little bit of what?
like blueberries.
Oh, okay. But no leather, like very different than the last one.
Very different.
So I used to know these, and I'm
Yeah, like you've smelled them.
Smells sweeter. I don't know how to say that, but it just smells sweeter.
Like sweet tobacco,
Well,
like pipe tobacco.
Mm.
It's got more fruit. I was gonna say it's more fruit forward. The other one was not like in the nose. We didn't smell the fruit until after.
Well, and that's usually typical with a lot of old world, is that the fruit isn't going to be really the first thing. That's a new world thing where, like, especially for things that are 3 to 5 years old, it's going to be, that's your main thing, is like, ooh, big fruit flavors. Usually with old world, especially, France, it's going to be a lot more subdued. You're going to have a lot more of those, earth and leather and chocolate and spices kind of coming to the forefront. With, the fruit is almost kind of like in the back seat.
I've had it actually in some recipes.
Okay.
I did not like
Am I weird for saying nutmeg?
No, that's a, it's in that baking spice.
You're weird, but not for saying nutmeg.
Well,
The weird guy.
that's a different group.
Like me, I'm getting, at least in mine, I'm definitely getting some vanilla, and that's just from the oak.
Here, a little bit of.
But I'm also getting like a bit of like a savory bit. It's like a sage. Well, all right. Well, we've done enough sniffing and contemplating, so let's go ahead and give this thing a taste. That was a much more bold flavor than the last one.
Ooh.
Ours is not.
It gets stronger. It's getting stronger and stronger on the edges of my tongue.
Okay.
I don't know what that means.
Well, I mean, the edges are what
Really good chocolate mousse too.
your savory and salt.
Maybe.
I remember I know the tip is sweet. I can't remember what the other 3 quadrants are.
I'm getting the edge thing too. That's really weird.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's way different. The other one I felt in the middle of my tongue. This one I feel on the outsides.
Yeah. It's a really short finish, the bottle we have.
I don't know if I taste blood, but
I'm definitely getting wet earth.
Oh, but it's really good with the goat cheese.
That was, it's the one flavor that I'm not as much of a big fan of, which is why I'm not a big Pinot Noir fan. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of kind of wet forest floor.
Moss. Dirt.
Do we know how his wine is different than ours? Same area or?
I don't know.
We're finding it's really nice with our blueberry chocolate mousse.
And the
Go get some
licorice,
licorice.
the licorice is amazing.
Probably go get some licorice.
We go cheese up about 10 degrees.
Yeah, actually, that just triggered. Yeah, that's actually one of the other things that I'm catching in mine is a little bit of that that anise licorice.
It is amazing with the licorice. Like it's really. My favorite is the chocolate mousse, but licorice is a close second.
Yeah.
Good with pate.
You said
So
good.
I can imagine that Pomerol is going to be really good with pate. Yeah.
Mhm. Better than the Medoc. Yeah.
Now the question is, does it the actual like iron really kind of come out in it?
They were supposed to.
I think so. Yeah.
I like fennel in small quantities.
I mean, it's not a punch in the face.
No.
Okay.
But it is just like that subtly, ooh, you know,
Okay.
there it is.
No, it's totally
Not
different.
good with blue cheese. Ugh.
So here's what's interesting. I'm finding that the wine before with blue cheese, it brought out more of the crystally kind of sweet piece. And this, it's very different.
Green straight up.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean that right there. That's why a lot of the previous sessions that I've done,
And
we went over, you know, specific varietals. You know, we've done just Cabernet Sauvignon, we've done just Merlot, you know, to really kind of get an idea of what those flavors are and what they go with. And you know, when we're doing now left bank versus right bank, where one was primarily Cabernet Sauvignon and now we're tasting one that's primarily Merlot, you know, yeah, they're going to have totally different flavor profiles, and you know, they're going to pair with very different food.
So this is the Merlot. The other had more cab in it.
Correct.
Yeah. It doesn't surprise me the way I'm feeling about them because I really prefer big, bolder reds.
Mhm.
And this is tasting to me like I'm not as big a fan of Merlot just because it doesn't have quite that depth.
You can do a 5-pound bag of onions in a slow cooker. Just leave it running all night.
Well, so I don't know if it shows on your bottle, but how much was Merlot and how much was like Cab Franc?
I'm gonna look.
I need to buy the yogurt. First, I want to get a strainer so I can make it Greek.
Doesn't say.
Good with so good with the chocolate. Chocolate and caramel. It's chocolate and caramel, so it's good with that. Really good.
Yeah, I told him we needed to get chocolate and caramel because I knew that there'd be like some good reason for the red.
The strainer, then you can just leave it in the container. So I do like multi-purpose.
Yeah, it's not giving me any percentage, although this one cost way, way, way more than the other one. I found 2 of them at Trader Joe.
Mm-hmm.
So I do.
Yeah, I forget. A couple of these were super expensive. I mean, for me, they were super
Right, no, I know, and that's where I was
I
like,
work in nonprofit. They were super expensive.
no, I told the guy, I was like, at this liquor store, I'm like, well, I don't really like French wine usually, so let's get the cheapest one because I'm not springing for like the $50, but.
Yeah, no, well, that I usually try to, you know, like with my wine choices, whenever I'm, you know, we're doing wines that I pick, I usually try to keep them under $20 a bottle. You know, this time around, I mean, most of them.
This did not happen. That did not happen.
Well, I mean, this like a couple of the bottles were a little bit over, but I was still able to find, you know, like pretty well rated for, you know, right around the $20 price point.
Yeah, no, this wasn't too bad, but I just remember he had 3 choices. It's like, well, this one's like 70. I'm like, no.
Yeah, no.
Now, because this was Merlot, I knew that it was going to go well or much better with the beef, and this with that steak and stout pie is amazing.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, like, and that's the thing is like Merlot, that's your perfect like burger wine.
I'm gonna have to remember because I'm gonna have to go into the office 2 days a week for a month. And I'm not telling my office that I was back.
Chocolate.
Good with chocolate? You liked it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, it's good. It kind of, it's 70% dark, but it
Yeah.
kind of, it mellows it. It's
Or
a
does it-
really
yeah.
nice marriage of the two.
It almost tastes like milk chocolate at that point.
I mean, are nuts? Yeah, I think nuts are definitely a thing that.
Mhm.
You know, it seems that the more earthy it is, the better it seems to go with it, with my stuff anyway.
Yep. I mean, that is a flavor note profile is, earth, and, especially, like nuts and earth, which is, which really kind of goes along with like if you have something that's really high in tannins, that's what's also going to kind of contribute to that earthiness. And, that's why one of the cheeses that I always try to suggest everyone have in their fridge is Manchego.
Oh.
Because it's effectively like your Swiss Army knife of cheeses. It goes well with reds. It goes well with whites. It's just this like sort of slightly, creamy, hard, salty, but also has that like earthy, nutty to it. So it kind of covers the entire like flavor profile, and it will match with just about every kind of wine you can put up against it.
It probably has option to do the thing.
All right. We excited for some Sauternes? little dessert.
Yogurt, and I was like, and it's not an Instapot.
Yeah.
I spilled a drop of that on my finger when I opened it and thought, oh yeah, wow, that's like mead. Sweet.
Oh yeah.
It's candy wine. It's totally candy wine.
They did. I mean, it's like Kleenex.
You see, they pair it a lot with foie gras. Foie gras is supposed to be eaten with Sauternes, so you need to have pate.
Oh yeah. Oh, that'd be cool.
I know.
I mean, that's a classic French pairing. Is you have your Sauternes with your foie gras.
But anyway,
It's also very strong, isn't it? Oh yeah, my God.
Right?
No, it's not fortified. It's just really.
Oh no, it's not.
Nope.
It's not that strong.
But it's just very sugary.
I know it has.
Well, it's barely strong, especially for a kind of sugared, with something with still really high residual sugar. Usually these are like somewhere between 12 and 14%. But I don't know. As I'm looking at this thing, yeah, it's. I was, at least in the bottle, it looks a lot more golden. But as
it's very honey colored.
Yeah, as I'm looking at it, it's a little bit lighter. It's pretty much just like right in the yellow range.
It's very golden.
I did not miss those days when I had.
All right. Oh, let's give this thing a little bit of a swirl, and we'll see how this goes. Now, remember, like I said, the two things that can affect that tiering is both alcohol and sugar. Now, with this thing having both, what we should expect in this is much less legs and more cankles.
So thicker at the bottom there, right? You're
never heard the wine described like that before.
It should be like a stovepipe.
It's not as demure. You're right. It's definitely. That's fun.
All four have a cork.
Smells great.
All right, yeah. So let's give this thing a swirl and a sniff, and what's everyone smelling on it?
Now, recently, the screw top is more than a cork. I did not know that.
Now I don't know if it's just because of my visuals, but I smell honey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh no, they're.
Would.
Just a little bit.
I get a lot of like dried apricot.
Yeah, that too. It's honey and apricot all the way, hard.
Or like honeysuckle flower.
Yeah, a little bit of white flour in there. Yeah. Ah. All right. Time for some dessert. So cheers.
Yeah, you can't drink much of this, I imagine.
Well, you can,
Mm.
but
Mm.
Oh wow. Yeah, that is truly dessert.
oh yeah.
All right. So what are you tasting on it?
Apricot
We
and
said
honey. I still taste honey.
honey, yes.
Honey.
Honey, apricot,
Honey,
mineral.
honey. Oh, that's
Any tropical? Almost like
There's
a-
pineapple. There's pineapple in there.
All of those.
got me wanting you.
Is this what happens every wine tasting at this point?
oh yeah.
This singing song.
I mean, this is actually a little tame, but
I feel like I was thinking.
We're the theater,
Wait, theater musical
This is
girls?
like-
musical theater
Musical
girls.
theater girls.
Oh yeah, perfect.
yeah.
Mm.
Wait, I
And-
tasted
But
both.
but you kind of feel how this one has a little bit thicker, like that.
Oh, like syrupy almost.
Mhm.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, it tastes like if you've ever had canned peaches, the syrup that's after
Yeah.
It's
It's like-
Wow.
13.
All right. Well, now to try it with a couple of things. I'm waiting to
That is outstanding with the blue cheese.
Yep. It's supposed to be.
And it makes that makes it.
Wow.
Lower,
Now I can see why they serve a cheese tray at the end of a meal. A cheese
Yep.
plate.
lower, and go with almonds and go with chocolate mousse.
Holy shit.
Oh.
You can always get a sense of how much the latency is on the Zoom. I'm like, how is Casey able to talk with a cup pouring down his throat? And why was he not talking before he put the cup into his
Is
mouth?
it that bad? Is it that bad really? Oh, no.
At that time.
I don't know.
A little below average sweetness for a Sauterne.
That really didn't answer.
You can smell the taste of noble rot.
Hit mute.
I don't know.
Hit mute, and I'll give you a lot of.
Said ice wine.
And he'll give you a lot.
So with the I just have a plain goat cheese, but with the goat cheese,
So I
it's
can-
like a cheesecake
really.
Any regions?
mixed with it. Oh yeah. Like I could see using it as a flavoring in a dessert.
What, the Sauterne?
Really easy to
Yeah.
try.
No, I'm
They
sorry.
always come in a tiny bottle.
It does. It totally reminds me of when you have honey with blue cheese.
Or
That's
Mhm.
what I'm getting. It's like that combination, even though we're not having any honey.
I
open up
agree.
that.
Yeah.
I remember that big cork is that one called Russian Kiss.
Which is a kettle.
Sweet food. And I actually bought
And then Irish cheddar, because I think it'll bring up caramel.
Yeah, even with the herb goat cheese,
tried it.
the herb just goes away. But that was really good.
So bad.
I was like, okay, get away from the Franzia.
It's a little much with the chocolate, like too much.
Well,
Because it's too much, it's sweet and then not sweet enough,
Too
or
much. Yeah.
yeah.
That is incredibly sweet.
I don't have dark chocolate though. I just have chocolate caramel.
Those are really good with the color.
strawberry.
Look at this, you keep the
All right. Well, I think this is kind of the end of
Offered to let you have all of them, but this one.
this virtual wine tasting. But I was gonna, well, not really. Well, end the recording. But I was gonna say for our next one, I'm currently out of ideas. So if anyone has any suggestions for like a weird theme, or you have a certain region that you want to kind of go over, I'm all ears.
Hey, can we do like a German wine?
Oh, do some Rieslings and Gewürztraminers.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Kurt's all about the beer, but I lived in Stuttgart and we were surrounded by vineyards. And I did
Sounds like a field trip.
I went to school in Hanover and we were surrounded by.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll combine both Germany and Austria, so then we actually get a little bit of
Oh, are you gonna do that Gruner Veltliner?
Yeah.
That's an awesome wine. Love it. So good.
So what do you think about that, Elizabeth?
It's not working.
So okay, so yeah, so in 2 weeks I'll get the lineup.
Wait.
So Rachel and Sarah are in a play that opens next weekend and the following weekend, and then it's done. So they're hoping.
So 3 weeks.
Except for in 3 weeks.
That's okay. We can do it. Because you're
Okay.
going to be at your sister's.
No, in 3 weeks you're going to be running.
It's fine.
Richard, have you done South Africa yet?
Yes, I did a New Zealand, South Africa. I mean, we could at some point we could concentrate on it.
It's gonna take several.
So
It would take her one day.
as a singleton here, I mean, wine wise anyway. How long do I have to drink all of these bottles of wine?
So the white. Well, I mean, the Sauternes will stay for a while.
Yeah, you can keep that
There's
forever.
no hurry on that one.
You've done it a long time.
The white wine, you have like 2 to 3 days before.
Okay.
Hold on, Sarah. and your reds, you have about 5 to 7 days.
Okay.
Especially if you seal them and then put them in the fridge, they'll hold a little bit longer.
All right.
Okay.
So our firehouse Zooms are going to be filled with wine, is what you're saying, instead of liquor.
Get yourself a vacuum sealer. They're
Mhm.
like
I have them. Yep. Yep.
yeah, they last a lot longer in the fridge.
Okay.
All right, Sarah. What'd you need? What'd you want?
All right. We want you to go ahead and do something different in 2 weeks. We don't care what, because we're not going to be there.
Okay.
Do another one 2 weeks after that. Do the
All right.
German one 2 weeks after that.
Because in 2 weeks we're in the show, and then in 3 weeks, Rob and Sarah are doing a run and can't drink the night before, wimps. And then and 4 weeks, so 2 weeks and 2 weeks, they're going to be here, but I'm going to be in Austin with my sister. And if you don't mind, I would love for her to be a part of this.
Okay. So in 2 weeks, I've heard South Africa.
Okay.
So
Can you do Pinotage? Did
oh
you
yeah.
do
Well,
Pinotage
if we're doing South Africa, you have to do Pinotage.
I love Pinotage, so that's my.
I mean, there's like two main wines of South Africa. It's Pinotage and the Chenin Blanc.
Okay.